Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jonathan Binstock. I'm the Mary W. and Donald R. Clark Director of the Memorial Art Gallery here in Rochester, New York. Welcome to the Black Artist Engagement Project for Season of Warhol. Before we get started, and before I introduce our project curator, Rachel de Guzman, who is organizing the Black Artist Engagement Project, I just want to say a few words about Season of Warhol and the Andy Warhol Life in Pop exhibition, all of which are on view right now at the Memorial Art Gallery. And if you, it's on all of these exhibitions, there's 4 of them in total, are on view through March 28th. So if you do want to visit the MAG, please get your tickets in advance, reserve your timed tickets online before you get to the gallery. I want you to be able to see the exhibitions, but capacity is limited. So in order to ensure that you have a spot, get those tickets online in advance and come visit. A lot of people there's a lot of demand these days in the closing weeks for the show. So it is really important that you get those tickets in advance. Well, as I said, before I introduce Rachel, I do want to share with you some images of Season of Warhol and Andy Warhol Life in Pop to set the stage for this virtual long table conversation, which is to follow. This will bring you all up to speed. It'll give you an understanding of the exhibitions and installations to which these 6 artists are responding. So Alyssa, without further ado, let's please have the first slide. There we are. So there are 4 parts to the Warhol presentation at MAG right now. This is the introductory wall. And let's go on to the next slide. The Van den Broek Pavilion is showcasing Andy Warhol's cow wallpaper from 1966. Superimposed, hanging on that wallpaper, is the complete portfolio of limited edition prints of the electric chair from 1971. So this is the first thing you'll see when you visit the MAG. And the electric chair is being a part of the Death and Disaster series from Warhol's pop period, and a little bit more on that in a minute. Next slide, please, Alyssa. This is the entrance to Andy Warhol Portfolios, A Life in Pop. This is an exhibition on loan to the Memorial Art Gallery by the Bank of America Art in Our Communities program. We're grateful to have this exhibition. It's really terrific. It's a survey of complete portfolios from throughout, print portfolios, screen print portfolios from throughout Warhol's career. You do see only one Marilyn Monroe print to the left, so that's an example of a portfolio which isn't complete. However, in the distance to the right, you see the complete portfolio of flowers from 1970. Next slide, please, Alyssa. Here, a Campbell's Soup portfolio, Campbell Soup 2 from 1969. And an image on the right side, or actually it's more in the center of your screen, of Birmingham Race Riot, a silk screen print in an edition of 500 from 1964. Next slide, please. Birmingham Race Riot is a part of the Death and Disaster series along with the electric chairs. And it's I think it'll figure into the conversation that's to come. I was approached by a friend of mine, Elizabeth Stouderman, who suggested that we think about inviting artists to respond to Warhol in the context of the Black Lives Matter civil rights movement. And we thought about this particular picture as a provocation for these responses. To be honest, I wasn't sure this was a good idea. And knowing a bit about Warhol, I know that the way in which race figures into his work, his career, his life is complicated. It's problematic. And I wasn't sure if this was a project that we should actually take on. I reached out to Rachel de Guzman of 21st Century Arts, Inc., someone who I've been developing a conversation with for a number of years. Actually, we met not long after I arrived in Rochester 6.5 years ago. And I asked her what she thought. She gave it some thought, and she thought it was a good idea and that it could be a productive idea and that we could generate an interesting conversation around Warhol today in 2021 for me, that was very exciting and very inspiring, because I really do believe in the continuing relevance of Warhol. I think he's an incredibly important artist, and I think the opportunity to further explore his work is important for in the context of art history and in the context of contemporary life. And so Rachel took on this challenge, and here we are today. So I just wanted to highlight this particular work because it may play a special role in the conversation to come. We'll see, which is exciting. I plan to learn a lot from this conversation and to be able to explore these new points of views that I think will help us to understand how Warhol might be relevant for our times in 2021. Next slide, please, Alyssa. Here is another view of the installation. You see the Campbell Soup can portfolio again, endangered species from 1983. Next slide, please, Alyssa. This is an image of 10 portraits of Jews of the 20th century from 1980. Also in the exhibition, you see in the distance a portrait of Warhol by Robert Mapplethorpe. Next slide, please. The third component to this season of Warhol is an exhibition called Warhol TV, which was organized by our curator at MAG, Almudena Escobar Lopez. This is the one exhibition of the 4 that was, I think, created from scratch in earnest. A lot of research went into the organization of this project. The television you see, the CRT tube, the CRT monitor you see features 90 minutes of Warhol's video broadcast and work from the 1980s, set into a kind of 1980s style den, which looks a lot like the room where I watched TV as a kid. This is a great exhibition and a ton of fun and very thoughtful and very innovative. Next slide, please. We also created an installation around Warhol's 1966 installation of Silver Clouds, which was created at the same time as the cow wallpaper installation. Next slide, please. Opposite that installation, you see a wall of photographs of Warhol in his silver factory. You see a flat screen monitor showing a passage from a dance performance by choreographer Merce Cunningham that took place in 1968 at Buffalo State University up the road here in Western New York. Merce Cunningham used the Silver Clouds as a stage set for that performance, which premiered, as I say, not far from where we are right now. Next slide, please. I'm going to just say a few words about Rachel by way of an introduction, and let her take the mic and lead us through this virtual long table conversation. Rachel de Guzman is the award-winning founder and executive director of 21st Century Arts, Inc., which is based in the Black House here in Rochester, New York, where she serves as managing curator. The focus of her work is decentering whiteness in arts and culture by centering the art, narratives, and voices of people of color, especially women and marginalized LGBTQ+ communities. To help fulfill that vision, she established At the Crossroads, activating the intersection of art and justice, long table conversation, and installation initiative, first presented by 21st Century Arts in 2017. Her current work grew out of a traditional career in professional arts with the intent to produce work more rooted in both art and community that values experimentation, innovation, and creativity in all its forms, as well as social justice and equity. So with that, Rachel, please join, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan. The artists involved in this project, as you'll see on the screen, are Lavon Barfield, Martin Hawk, Erica J., Coco Ray, Narada Riley, and Brittany Williams. It's been my pleasure to work with the artists and partner with Jonathan, Alyssa, Meg, Jessica, and the rest of the MAG team. In the work I lead at 21st Century Arts, Inc., I provoke conversations with art in a format called The Long Table, which I adapted from the model created by artist and activist Lois Weaver in the early 2000s. The Long Table is a performative device where participants have in-depth dinner table-like conversation. This was not possible to do in person due to the COVID pandemic, so we pivoted and the long table was deconstructed. The participants viewed the exhibit on their own time at the Memorial Art Gallery. In our first meeting on January 12th, Jonathan gave a talk about Warhol. I provided some historical and contemporary context on Warhol's Birmingham race riot, and the artists discussed Warhol. There was a very robust conversation and we ran out of time. So we moved the first artist-centered long table to a second meeting, which was recorded and is available on the MAG website. Then we separated and the artists created new or repurposed original artwork to be in dialogue with the Seasons of Warhol exhibit and each other. Today, the artists will present their work and engage in a culminating conversation in this progressive project. In a white supremacist society, even a liberal one, there's a legacy of marginalization and erasure which will not change for Black artists without intention and action. When Jonathan approached me about collaborating on a project with the community in Warhol, it was important to shift things and center Black artists' perspectives and work. What we decided on was a Black artist engagement project. The artists were engaged to be in dialogue with the Season of Warhol exhibit, but this project was conceived of to be disruptive in a few ways. They were not required to be experts on Andy Warhol or his body of work. They were asked to become familiar with his work, especially the Season of Warhol exhibit at Memorial Art Gallery. But they are the experts of their experiences and perspectives. Their perspectives were centered in this process. As Jonathan alluded to, they were asked to prepare a creative response that was inspired by Andy Warhol, and especially the Death and Disaster series, which includes Birmingham Race Riot, the focus of our attention and coming together in the first place in this project, but not necessarily the end point. Their creative responses were not interpreted or deemed right or wrong. It was through their individual lenses. They are all Black artists, but there is no monolithic Black response. It was incredibly important that this project did not just pick their brains, but recognize that they brought important expertise to this process and to pay them for their involvement as professionals. They are all working artists. If Black Lives Matter, Black artists matter. The art created by Black artists matters. Creating more opportunities for Black artists to grow and thrive matters. Black artists are creating work all the time, and if we want to shift the inequitable arts landscape in Rochester and beyond, it is critical that we recognize the racism and marginalization Black artists experience every day. This is not just a threat to their individual careers, it inhibits our local arts landscape to achieve its potential and to impact our community's growth. What makes art iconic or classical? Indisputably important, universally superior. At one time, ballet and classical music were just popular art forms. I am both amused and dismayed when hip hop or street art are newly discovered as worthy of note when both art forms, if they were human beings, would be considered middle-aged. They are currently among the United States' most successful international exports and inspirations to the rest of the globe. Jazz did not become a great musical art form with Benny Goodman. Centuries of Black African art were not primitive and then subtly revolutionary to Eurocentric canons with the invention of new art by Picasso and Martha Graham. Black people are creating and innovating all the time, making important contributions to our creative landscape beyond the white gaze. The paradigm where Black artists' work has arrived when recognized by white critics, scholars, and institutions is a vestige of American apartheid. The elevation of a few Black geniuses, magical Negroes, especially those in major arts centers, does not constitute sustainable progress, equity, or inclusion for the vast majority of Black working artists in the field. The late, great Toni Morrison once said, "All of that art for art's sake stuff is BS. What are these people talking about? Are you really telling me that Shakespeare and Aeschylus weren't writing about kings? All good art is political. There's none that isn't. And the ones that try hard not to be political are political by saying we love the status quo." From my perspective, not only is art political, but it is powerful. It is the most consequential conveyor of the story of us. And having said all that, I'm happy to introduce our first artist, Lavon Barfield. Lavon is a gifted, multifaceted artist who believes art is helpful, art is healing, art is necessary, art is love, and everything is always better with a little love on it. Adopted at birth and raised in Rochester, New York, where she currently still calls home, Lavon has a special love for this incomparable flower city. While growing in popularity and esteem as a professional artist and creator of Love On artwork originals, Lavon has been a part of some amazing projects and works. She is the creative director at her local house of worship, Glory House International, educator in the Rochester City School District, member of Woke Art Collaboration, Women of Color, former assistant art director for a private art firm, and muralist. Her most recent piece, titled My View, is housed at the newly renovated Mercantile on Main, which is the former Sibley's. Lavon is also a very talented singer, poet, stylist, photographer, and all-around creative. Lavon?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I am just, first, I am really honored to be a part of this conversation. Dynamic topic. I think that it is important. This was a form of self-healing for me, as I saw the image of Birmingham Race Riot, which was created by Andy Warhol. And it was seared into my mental. An image that people of color so oftenly remember, and I was triggered. But I am an antonym, so I am the opposite. I will not allow outside forces to continually traumatize me or dictate my existence. So I use my God-given gift of art as a form of healing. I believe that art is helpful. I believe that art is healing, and I believe that it is necessary. Art is love, and everything is always better with a little love on it. The Andy Warhol as an artist, a pop culture icon, a philosopher, best known for his use of vibrant color palettes and repetition, once said, I always thought I'd like my tombstone to be blank, no edifice and no name. Well, actually, I'd like it to say figment. The definition of a figment is a thing that someone believes to be real, but that exists only in their imagination. And this is where the journey of creating both sides began. I worked with the idea of color and absence, repetition and mirroring, and how they can influence perception, like Warhol did with the Birmingham Race Riot. Using primary colors, red, blue, and yellow, which was a conscious decision to celebrate the root of creation, and the mirroring image in black and white as symbolism of race and racism in America. I use the artistic, self-regulating mental health technique, bilateral drawing, where you use both hands mirroring movements to create a form of art therapy, and incorporated the 9-dot test, which is also known as think outside the box, to encourage expansive creative thinking. I have this persistent thought that color does not exist, but is formulated in our brains, which ties into the social concept of race, which is abstractly expressed in the piece that I created. Let's use our full brain, left and right side, to think outside the rock box, because there really is no box. We need to come up higher in our consciousness and commitment to end racism in our city, our country, and our world. And I thank Warhol for his contributions, for he will always and forever be known as Figment to me.
Thank you, Lavon. Our next artist is Martin Hawk, who is a documentary filmmaker and photographer. His first short documentary, A Litany for Survival, premiered at the Portland Film Festival and was picked up by NBC Universal for streaming on their Xfinity on-demand platform. Hawk's feature-length documentary, Pressure Gradient, is currently in production. The film will explore the shades between love, rage, and rebellion as a Black person attempting to survive in Rochester, New York. Martin?
Hello, everyone. It's really an honor to not only be a part of this. I'm forever grateful to the MAG and John, but in particular to Rachel and 21st Century Arts for continuing to give us a platform. I think I'm going to speak further on validation and the nuanced, cynical take I have on it. But I think overall, this is an incredible opportunity for us to both challenge status quo and also find our place within it. Because too often, you know, especially Black artists, we find ourselves on the periphery, fighting for, you know, our 15 minutes, and always making $1 out of 15 cents. So anyways, this is my piece, Pressure Gradient, Black Weapons. Andy Warhol's unlicensed reinterpretation of Charles Moore's Birmingham race riot photograph conveyed the harsh reality of racial inequality to insular elitist circles. We're gathered decades later, musing over the precedent set by Warhol's commercialized activism, enchanted by his charming nonchalance. However, I wanted to explore a more critical side of the story, the cynical trappings of proximity, specifically the proximity to a great white artist and default gatekeepers to ascended artistic and privileged circles. Even caramel-colored Basquiat's late-stage rise to prominence before his unfortunate death and lasting impact will forever be tied to his proximity to the great white man who originally co-signed his brilliance. Does the contemporary Julian Schnabel suffer the same chains of validation? With my piece, I explore the ways Black people in the pursuit of freedom are forced to integrate with great white men and great white systems. My piece is less a series of individual images and more a carefully weighted gradient. This pressure gradient reveals the ways Black people are weaponized by oppressive systems in their dogged pursuit of survival. The dissonance shown with the left sun bleeds into the silhouetted inner turmoil of a Black officer swallowed by the blue veil, a white system born from slave patrols now maintained by converting empathetic human beings into apathetic blue soldiers, loyal to the principles of its original supremacist cause. The proud, bright sun on the right mirrors the clarity of spirit shown by its neighboring Black man, fist raised, stoically kneeling and fighting to maintain his dignity and humanity against that same overwhelming, aggressive blue barrier. With the piece, I wanted to show always one extreme or the other. Black people are never able to exist independent from these power structures, always in the pursuit of the intoxicating nectar of white proximity. How else are we to value our worth when our bodies, minds, and art are always adjusted 3/5 their true value? This event, for example, despite altruistic concerns and interests I'm very grateful for, Black artists are brought to display their talents and intellect digitally, fleetingly, within the context of deified, proudly exhibited physical works of a great white man. The work we've produced soon relegated within an academic white paper for a handful of elitists to stumble upon, while Black people continue to suffer in the millions, despite all performative efforts. We, as Black artists, will continue to wait gratefully for the next great boon of proximity from generous white institutions like Memorial Art Gallery and the U of R will persist and continue to create rare, terrifying, immersive art painted by our blood, trauma, and anguish, because this body of work is more than good business to us. My art is a weapon for war. I choose violence with my art. That's my choice. Choosing love, choosing war, all of these things are expressions of ourselves. And again, the art is a weapon for war, not a tool for trade. And everything I craft is born from violence because that's the reality from which my palette has been formed. I look forward to the day my work can be ingested free from the rage and desperation of its creator. The day my work can survive on its own merit without the need for proximity-based validation. And that's what my project Pressure Gradient on the whole explores, and that's certainly what this explores as well. And so what I wanted to do, to bring it back to Andy Warhol, I've found through this process how much of my work before even getting into filmmaking, photography, as a musician, as someone who put together. So I put together a video a couple years ago. And my label at the time was very hesitant to release because of the implications. But the same things we're dealing with today, the black man shot and killed in front of Open Door mission a few days ago, these are issues that we've been dealing with for the entirety of my lifetime, going back decades. I mean, it's overwhelming. And so through the use of symbolism, through the use of imagery, and in particular, a nod in retrospect to Andy Warhol's ability to take known images and recontextualize them within his own significance. That's what this video represents.
Of these people by any means necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Next, we're going to see the art and hear from Erica J. Erica J was born and raised in the 19th ward of Rochester, New York. Out of love and protection, her mother only allowed her to play from in front of her house up to the stop sign that was located 2 houses down. Naturally, Erica grew curious about the world beyond her parameters, and in college, she majored in social sciences with a concentration in mental health. Over the last 8 years, Erica has worked as an assistant manager, a clinical case manager, and a residential counselor in various group homes. Her work has been featured on NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt and published in several Rochester magazines. From an early age, Erica expressed herself through writing fictional short stories, poetry, and blasting hip hop from the stereo in her room. With her camera as an advocate, Erica tells the story of the people within her community and beyond. Her work seeks beauty in hidden gems, balance with the duality of light and dark, and stillness in the poetic rhythm of the streets. Erica?
Yes, thank you, Rachel. For the season of Warhol Black Artist Engagement Project, I reworked my original photograph taken during the Rochester, New York BLM protest, and I did as Andy would do. I turned it into a screen print. I found a local workshop that was teaching screen printing, and I took on the challenge to try out this new technique using my own photography. And just like Andy, I printed the image again and again and again in different colors and on different textures. I printed it on wood, canvas, and even a t-shirt that I'm currently wearing. Did Mr. Warhol intend to invoke his audience to action or to beat a dead horse and piss off the masses? Regardless of Andy's intention with the creation of the Birmingham race riot, my intention when taking this photo and turning it into a screen print was to amplify the people's voices of this new generation. A photo of a police car that was spray painted with the expletive fuck as Rochester's first response to the murder of George Floyd seems like the perfect comeback to the Birmingham race riot, since it demonstrates how fed up people are with the systemic and structural racism. It also sheds light on the progress that we're making in the continuous fight for social justice and the lives of Black and brown bodies. Back in Andy's time, I don't think it would have been this easy for a local citizen to get this close to their patrol vehicles and spray paint it with such profanities. So in lieu of Andy's Birmingham race riot, the appropriate title for this photo would be Rochester Police Riot. Thank you and enjoy.
Thank you, Erica, so much for Rochester Police Riot. And next up is Coco Ray David. Coco Ray David is a Rochester-based visual artist and photographer who creates captivating portraits of unique, diverse people that capture their true essences. Her style consists of vivid colors, Afrocentric shapes, and vibes, as well as bold lighting techniques. Coco Ray's goal is to create a new style of photography that promotes body positivity and self-love. Coco Ray has a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in digital photography. During her undergraduate years of art school, Coco Ray started a year-long portrait array called Pigment Series, a collection of mixed media artwork that consists of semi-nude photography and body painting. Each portrait captures the true essence of the model while promoting self-love, body positivity, and individuality. After graduating, Coco Ray continued to work on the Pigment series as well as other various artistic projects. In 2019, she became an artist in residence at Flower City Arts Center. Through all her years of work, Coco Ray has collaborated with various people and institutions such as the Slave Dwelling Project, the Cocktail Bandits, Charleston Fashion Week, Charleston Magazine, TEDx Talks, Rochester Artists Collaborative, Writers and Books, George Eastman House, and various others. In addition, she also curated the Black Lives Through Lens Gallery at the Avenue Black Box Theater in honor of Daniel Prude. Coco?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for existing and just taking in all of this. After visiting the Warhol exhibit, I took a long look at myself as an artist. I never really saw myself as a photographer, but as a multidimensional artist with an intuitive imagination. Warhol really inspired me to really think about how, Warhol, Warhol really inspired me to think about how to articulate my feelings and thoughts through art, as well as putting myself in my own projects. The exhibition reminded me not to limit myself to one art discipline. This project brought back old memories of my younger self as I was trying to define myself in the world. Just like Warhol, art was the only way to communicate my thoughts, experiences, and existence. Contrast to Warhol's Birmingham Race Riot piece, only showing men, both Black and white, this exposed me to the erasure and silence of Black femme voices in art and social justice in the community. I definitely saw myself in the piece as a Black person. Unfortunately, I didn't see anyone who represented me as a Black woman. I believe that Moore and Warhol used their white male privilege as a device to frame their perspectives as a spectator of racism. As a Black woman artist, I decided to turn the perspective inward by approaching this project in a positive and uplifting way. Just like Warhol's artistic influence in response to Moore's photo, I wanted to focus my lens and beauty standards. Using my lens as a mirror, I decided to include 8 Black women with an X, not an E, models, including myself as the Black voices of this project. In honor of the International Women's Month, I wanted to bring Black women to the center of the frame, along with Black-owned apparel created by a Black woman and Black art created by both Black men and women. As a composite, I wanted to give my models a chance to feel like they were a part of an art collection in a museum. For me personally, I wanted to see myself in front of a camera as conceptualized fine art. I wanted to showcase the true essence of Black girl magic, not only as a conceptual art piece, but in style, attitude, identity, and in white spaces. This piece I really worked really hard on. I just didn't feel like having one picture would represent all of it. Instead, I wanted to do a composite because I felt like the composite would add something more appealing to when you're looking at a piece. So with this piece, you really can't just look at one part. You have to look at everything. And even the littlest things still have a place in this piece. Thank you.
Thank you, Coco. And I will say that I just want to add that you shot this in Memorial Art Gallery in the space. I'm in some of the parlor rooms, but I guess you can talk about that a little later. Narada, John Riley, is our next artist. He's an accomplished photographer from Rochester, New York, and the founder of Call Me Enrod Studios. His work has been featured in Black Lives Matter photo exhibits, Capture the Movement in Brooklyn, New York, and Black Will Not Step Back at the Black House in Rochester, New York. Narada believes in the quote, "Fate loves the fearless." To him, this means fearlessly do anything and everything in life, and fate will forever be in your favor. Narada stands by the principle, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. He finds that with today's social media, a new opportunity is always budding. These principles keep him grounded in creativity and consistency. When Narada doesn't have the camera or iPad in his hands, he's trying to expand his artistic footprint in the world, always looking to collaborate and curate with other artists and creatives. Currently, Narada is working on his untitled photo book on the hashtag BLM movement in Rochester, New York in 2020. Narada?
How's everyone doing today? Thank you all for attending, and thank you, Miss Rachel and Jonathan and the MAG as well for having me as a guest. I'm gonna start off just reading my artist statement right away, then I'll talk a little bit after that. Can you guys hear me now? There we go. All right, so here's my artist statement. My creative work includes multiple digital applications, as well as my hardware, camera, iPad, iPencil. I believe art exists to be a light into different worlds and serve as a personal flame to our souls and histories. With my Space Fruit series, I was trying to only use my original art. This in itself is part to my response to Andy Warhol's Race Riot piece. Why do I say it's a response to that? Simply, that's because it's made by me, which ties back to our discussion, which is, did Andy use any type of appropriation to create his commission of race riots? My Space Fruit series is at the eclipse of appropriation and inspiration. Now, the similar process is between Andy and I. Andy loved color pops, as I do. Andy used a 3-step process when he created his Sunset series, a 3-layered silkscreen print, background, sun, and single dot pattern for the background. I use a similar process digitally. The applications I used were Lightroom to edit my raw images, Snapseed to create double exposures, and then as well as Procreate to create a single dot background. And then the last step as well was back to Photoshop to blend the 2 layers. All right, Space Fruit was a commission, and Andy and I are eerily similar in our original thoughts when it came to Space Fruit. He placed various fruit on a white background and used concentrated light aimed on the subject to create color intensity, compositions, and shadows to play with. Here's the excuse me. Here's the eerie part. I did the same exact thing with the blood oranges to step outside the box and try to create impressionism. And this was before I was even chosen for this project. So here, now you see how my moon series was created. You can see the moon on the right side, and you can see the orange on the left. It's a perfect lunar eclipse between Andy and me. Andy also created album artwork, which I do as well. The Blood Moon edition of the Moon Fruit series is a homage to Sir Warhol. So here on the left, you guys can see the blood orange. On the right, you can see the moon. On the right side, I shot that moon in 2019. It's funny that I ended up using it for this project because I just took a random photo of the moon. And the left, I actually started to try to create impressionism, which I was inspired by going to the mag and seeing Andy's series of his Sunset series, and as well as his Space Fruit series. So right here, I just tried to create an intersection of the 2 different installations that Andy created and to create my own. And as you can see, there's a single dot background on just the background. It's not overlapping the fruit or the moon. So that's my response to Andy's vision here and everything that Miss Rachel created for us here to talk about. So that's all I have right here.
Thank you, Narada. Alyssa, can you change and show the other slides to his piece? Because Narada was very prolific with these.
And as you see there, I created 9 different colorways of it because Andy created tons of different color schemes when he did this original commission for a hotel back in 1972. He created 472 different color variations for Johnson and Berg. So I just wanted to showcase my ability to create different color schemes and templates. And that's pretty much it there. So.
Thank you, Narada.
Yeah.
So the next artist is Brittany Williams. Brittany Williams is an artist based out of Rochester, New York. She's had her work shown in public spaces, companies, editorial publications, and galleries. Brittany's art focuses on the lived experiences of her surroundings. She uses subject matter such as everyday people, patterns, and vivid color palette, reflecting on situations that are ever present around her. Brittany?
Hello, everyone. Glad to be here amongst beautiful panelists. First of all your works is amazing. I couldn't even type fast in the chat, so I just want to say that first. Thank you for everyone for coming. During this panel that we had earlier on in January, I wanted to talk about authenticity, and what brought about that conversation is just like how authentic is Andy Warhol when he is putting out these pieces. So I feel like his best work was the Ladies and Gentlemen series, and it just showed that this was about his community, the LGBT community. And with that series, he showed Black and brown trans women, drag queens, and using his images that he owned and let these individuals be themselves. And it was the most colorful. I feel like it's the most prolific work he's ever made. And I'm gonna just go in and talk about, my piece and how I connected, authenticity to that. So as a Black American, I do my best to find joy in a society where it's not always granted to us. One day you're celebrating a big accomplishment with your loved ones, opening up a business, graduating school, bringing in a new life into this world, etc. Then the next day, you're compounded by trauma of Black lives being cut short. The weight of these moments become immeasurable. How can you tune out this noise when many of us have to experience bad news on a daily basis? Things have gotten so intolerable that we're putting our mental and physical health on the line. On the other hand, we're being asked to help explain and collapse racism, homophobia, sexism, all across all industries. It's not like one emotion at one time. It's all of the emotions at once. Not being able to coordinate them all because you're anticipating another traumatic event. During our creative dialogue with the MAG regarding Andy Warhol's Birmingham race riot, I questioned Andy Warhol's reasoning for illustrating a significant period of Black trauma without any context of how to resolve it. Was it to show pretentious museum attendees the dangers of being Black in America? Or was this piece made for casual consumption and financial gain because you're Andy Warhol? In my painting Mood Swings, the leaves represent authenticity and moments of peace. The figure is dealing with trying to move forward and doing something that gives them the spark. But in the back of their mind, they're thinking, what's happening? And so the figure is, not a gender specific person. And I made it that reason because I feel like we all as Black people of all spectrums, whether you're woman, man, trans woman, trans man, disabled, you go through these patterns of, do I celebrate my joys of what's happening? Because there's, madness going on in the back. And like, how do I deal with that? Like, can I be happy and, have this emotion of what can I do to help, So that is my piece.
Thank you, Brittany. I'll just say before we transition to the long table conversation, which will just be with the 6 artists, that all of you have greatly exceeded my expectations, and I have eyeliner on. I don't want to cry, but so I'll just move on. But you just have blown me away with your commitment to this project and your respect for each other, and just really trying to explore this topic and this partnership. The next step of this project is for the artists to have this deconstructed long table, which has been provoked by all of their experiences, starting with attending the season of Warhol at the Memorial Art Gallery, and then the first 2 conversations that we have. I will say that Jonathan is going to close up later. I'll come in at the end, but this time is just for the 6 artists. It is really important that we hear from them now about their experience and their work, how they feel about each other's work, and being part of the Season of Warhol project. So without further ado, if all of them can come on screen, I'd appreciate it, including the interpreters, and I am going to mute myself.
Well, y'all snapped. Okay.
Everyone did.
Like, seriously.
No, really, it's amazing. I mean, look, I'm just amazed that, you already have it on a t-shirt. I already knew Narada was about to make a whole gallery out of it. And like, it's incredible. I'm super interested though forgive me, but I know Coco Ray, you you shot at the mag, didn't you?
Yeah, I
That's
did.
amazing.
I want to hear I want to hear all about that experience, because again, I mean, I alluded to this before, but you know, somehow, some way, obviously as things open up, I mean, I got to see these things. I mean, I'm just looking at Lavon's piece, incredible behind, like,
Incredible.
I just need to see. I mean, particularly for me, I think that there's such a difference between having something web-based. I mean, the power of that.
Sorry, y'all.
The proliferation of
Hold
art,
on.
but you know, actually getting it tangible, actually seeing it in person. I think that that's the next step, and I'm already seeing a preview of that. But yeah, I'd love to hear more about Coco, your process.
Okay, thanks. Well, like, to be honest, I kind of had this, just like how like Narada was talking about, like how like divine timing with like things aligning up. Like it may not make sense like at the time when it comes up, but like as time comes along, it comes together. So for me, you know, after going to the more art gallery and seeing everything, I was like infatuated with like the other parts of the museum. Like originally, my plan was to go to see if I can get the second floor, because the lighting in the second floor and the colors of each room is just perfect. And you're like, oh my gosh, like everything, you know. But you know, the one thing I learned about this project is like sometimes you have to work with what you got. Like you may not be able to have everything you want to get, but you have to get it done and just get it, like make it do. So my original idea was to have 8 models in total, and I was going to have 2 Black men involved in it, but things just didn't fall through the way I wanted to. So I ended up having to step in and put myself into a project. I haven't put myself in a project in over a decade, you know. So doing that was actually pretty fun. And, you know, talking to my models about it and telling them my idea, they really loved it, you know. So I started adding other stuff to it, like the Ave. I don't know if you guys heard of the Avenue, the Black Box Theater on Joseph Ave. They are right now, and I'm actually currently wearing one of the shirts they have. I have models who have masks on that says Black on it, and it was created by the Ave. Rena Golden put all this, like had all this stuff, and I was like, dude, I should put this in, like put a little of like Black subliminal messages in there, you know. And then Martin, I love you for picking out Hizuka, and I have a Lumi in the back, but those 2 pieces were actually my sister's art pieces she got off Twitter. This black artist created these pictures, and that we love how like they look, like everything's clean, the lines, the colors, all of it. So I was like, dude, how am I gonna incorporate all this other stuff in here? So I have these beautiful Black women, I have this Black apparel, I have Black art pieces like done by Black artists. Like, how am I going to like cultivate this? So, you know, my idea was to just shoot everybody as is in these like different spaces and just go with it. And when I was sitting down looking at everything, I was like, I don't feel right just only showing one person. Like, I don't think that would do its justice. So I decided to go back to my, you know, old days where I used to do composites. Like I loved doing composites when I was growing up. And the funny thing was for me, it's like right now, I'm like, it's been 10 years since I've graduated high school. I was like the co-editor-in-chief of the yearbook committee. So I did like, behind my teacher, I did like 85% of that whole entire book. Like that's my baby. And I was looking back at all this stuff. I'm like, damn, why am I, you know, not going back to my old stuff where I would do these different things. So I was like, let me try something different, you know, like, let me do a composite. A little bit of it is an homage to one of my art school classmates. Her name is Tilly the Artist. If y'all don't know her, y'all need to get to know her. She's a great graphic designer and surrealist artist. And I kind of like did a little of like inspiration based off of her stuff to like present that she's been a bigger part of my life, especially during this pandemic, and helping me keep going with art and inspiring me to keep doing art. So it was a big thing. A lot of it was like coming together as it was going, but it like I'm truly blessed for what I came out with. Like it's a whole different perspective I didn't expect.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you about your video. Okay, your video gave me Linkin Park's Breaking the Habit and What I've Done. Like it gave me both, and I was like, yo, like all this. And was that you singing in the background?
Yeah, so I'm originally a recording artist, so all of this visual stuff is post George Floyd, May 30th, to be honest. But I mean, I had a camera using it to help cut costs, basically. But yeah, I mean, again, I wanted to include that video just because back to Andy Warhol, right? Like, we are critical, as we should be, of recontextualizing and taking images. But I guess I do empathize a significant amount with taking an image that just is so immersive. Like we look at when we visit the exhibit, how he did all the icons, right? From Disney to the caricature of a Black woman to like all of these iconic figures. Yes, we have taken them in as a society. Walt Disney means this, but means different things to different people, right? Someone may see that visage of the Wicked Witch of the West and automatically feel something, but then maybe just depending on their context, reinterpret that. So, you know, I do obviously, I'm critical of it, but at the same time, I look back at my work and I'm like, I did the same damn thing, right? So just lack of resources, whatever it was, but in the pursuit of trying to, in many ways, perhaps a visual version of what you did, right? Like trying to convey all of my emotions with such strong imagery that speaks to me. Very diverse from different things, just pulling things, and the big thing is not having it be too much of a distraction. But I mean, all of these things are expressions, right? Through the use of music, making images, painting, all of these things, I think. And I think that was a brilliant quote Rachel had in her initial speech, just about, you know, like we can't be apolitical, and if we are, that is itself a very political choice. I think that if we weren't to express ourselves in these ways, that we would more or less succumb to the reality of our suffering. You know, so in many ways, art, I think, can feel very trivial at times, particularly coming from the music industry. But I think that you know, back to validation, a positive validation has been, you know, this project certainly, and all of what we've done while going through everything that we've been going through for our whole lives, let alone the past 9 months. So, yeah.
All right. I'm going to say everyone did an excellent job, amazing job. I'm blown away completely. Everyone's piece is so original. And I love that we even touched a little bit of film. We got some art in there. We got some photography. I love the fact that, Erica, that's crazy. That's fire. I love the fact that you created. I was going to make a shirt, but I trusted a company. I ordered an Andy Warhol shirt, didn't show up. So that you kinged me on that. That's fire. I love it. Because I was actually going to make mine into one too. But instead, I want Andy Warhol to make albums. He did the album covers, actual physical albums, and printed as well on the disc.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, how do y'all feel about capitalism as a means to drive home political points, right? Like, I mean, Andy Warhol did it a lot. You know, the whole good business narrative. I mean, we're not going to defeat capitalism necessarily from an individual standpoint. So through the use, like Avenue Black Box making those brilliant shirts, Erica making that, like, I mean, how do y'all feel about sort of embracing in many ways? I mean, we've seen it through, you know, Color for Change and other things like that, obviously empowering Black artists, but also art institutions, Black art institutions and fundraising. How do you feel about that dichotomy, I guess, if that makes sense?
You're asking me specifically?
Anybody.
Oh, okay.
I'm constantly conflicted, right? Because in order for us to do what we have to market it, right? But at the same time, it's sort of like, well, how do I market? Like, at what point is it exploitive? I think we touched on this before. And
I guess what I would say in this part of the conversation is, I guess only Lavon, Brittany, Coco, I don't, the appropriation from the pain of the experience, you know, they created all those original images, you know, so it's a little bit different.
I guess,
you know, because
it would be different for you and I, right? Who are capturing up. But I mean,
not my actual
no, not that
installment today, but yeah, in the other sense of when we're out there actually taking the photos and everything, absolutely. But we have to feed ourselves and make our own money as well, as every artist does, as long as you're doing it for the right reason at heart, you're trying to actually uplift your people and show the actual pain if you're showing pain, or show the beauty in it, as Lavon, Brittany, and Coco did in theirs from the artistic side, as Erica J used the actual image. So that also shows, but not as much pain, just more realness. And people need realness in America to accept anything. So I think that ties back to the Death and Disaster series, how Andy, we talk about the race riot image, appropriation and things like that, but Andy's closest tie possibly could have been just including that in his installment. A lot of people can't embrace that realness, and I feel like he just tried to show a little glimmer of light onto it, which I think is very important. Just as artists ourselves, we don't have to completely overtake everything. And because today on social media itself, some people posted just a square. That was all they could do. Some people they're nervous, and things like that. Some people will get nervous to post certain things, but Andy did do that, and that could have been his only way. He's not a very expressive person. I mean, it's a quote here: when Kennedy died, all he said was he felt no sadness, and he felt more sad that people were so sad that he died. So that almost shows something itself. So let me get off the floor and let somebody else speak, and I'll put that in the air.
I'm gonna say one thing before I let anyone. For me, I think it's just when I put, and gave everybody the idea to have the mask that says Black, I wasn't doing it for I wasn't really trying to do it originally for for capitalism. A lot of it was just to insert motifs and themes into things. I like things that just stand out. And I think because of these shirts, this apparel, it just speaks. It is the most Blackest thing you can do. We are a statement. I think even as Black people, we try not to be such a political stance on a lot of stuff. We just want to exist and just live life. A lot of times that's all we want to do. But because the way the world works and how these systems have really put us on the bottom of the totem pole, and then of course the intersectionalities of us, it's just we have to keep going. We have to always keep going and keep moving. It's like we're fish. If we stop, we die. So a lot of it was for me when I put these masks and I used them to do it. I used it as not only a sign to show how an essence of Blackness, but also what is going on at the time. Why are we wearing masks at this time? We're in the middle of a pandemic. Think about all the extra stuff that comes along with it. Think about the issues we had when people were first initiating us to wear masks. For me, yesterday was my birthday. That just marked how long it's been since we've been in a pandemic for a year, and how much things have changed and stuff. So for me, when I was looking at these pieces, I wanted to show the signs of the times, what's going on. Why is it that with Black women, we always are, we're just now coming up? Why is it that we had to wait so long to just come up in the art world? Why is it there are already Black artists from decades ago? I bet you can trace back to all these white male artists, and then think about all the Black male artists that come behind that. But what about the Black women artists? Why is it just little bits and pieces of us just coming up in the 21st century? So a lot of the things I was trying to go with is why now? Why is it we wait until now? Why is it that we wait 400 years for our last? Why? It's just, so it's a lot of it was just asking questions of what is happening? Why now? Or why wait until now? So for me, a lot of it was just it has a lot of questions, a lot of themes and motifs. For me, I couldn't just stick with one theme. I felt like there was so much that Aunt Warhol didn't even talk about in these pieces. Yeah, I get that you took a picture of Moore's picture and screen printed it, and it was okay, it's a part of the series. But were you down there when the riots were happening? For me, I lived in Charleston for 3 years. I was there when the Charleston 9 happened. So you want to talk about people getting out the streets, people traveling all over the world to come see what just happened in this tragedy of 9 people being in a church, and then somebody had the audacity to sit with them and then murk all of them. So a lot of the stuff, the stuff that we do in the art what we create, it's a lot of the questions of what's happening now. You know, we just exist and we can't just sit here and not do anything with that, you know?
Very
But
true.
that's me, like, so I'm done. I'll let somebody else speak.
Let me just say something real quick to tie it back to Martin's. What you were saying about the capitalism, it's like, okay, does the Black experience, is it okay to get capitalism off of it? I mean, the white culture itself, every movie we watch, Christmas movies, all those different things, they get money off of what their culture and their things they go through. So we can too. And it doesn't have to only be where we see a movie like on Bill Street and you see the Black experience and then you're like, oh man, it's just a story and then it's gone.
Yeah, so
like Coco said,
right.
With
So
her,
that
with
that
the mask.
really,
Hold on 1 second.
That wasn't
Coco
really
said
what I was
with the
talking about.
mask.
What I was talking about, that wasn't really what I was sort of referring to was the fact that like what we make is coming from the soul, like it's reactionary. We have to react, but it's to our thing versus Andy Warhol, who was a noted excellent businessman. Like or he viewed it like that, and he took advantage in a really really powerful way. And so what my original question is that, you know, comparatively, we're on two opposite sides of the spectrum as Black artists and then as Andy, but how do we sort of bridge that gap, I guess? Because again, my whole thing was about proximity, et cetera. So I guess I was a bit too vague with the question. I mean, yeah, we have to eat, obviously, but I mean, often we're reacting to our own traumas, but we can't really create things or create, like we ride the trends of our own destruction through these supremacist systems. So, you know, I guess the question is, how do we view ourselves versus like a great white artist and their ability to just simply exist, you know? And then how do we take advantage of that? You know, because I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out.
Well,
I'm gonna fight until I exist the same.
I think you just simply create spaces for only Black people. Like that's just the only option. Like if you're looking for these higher up entities, whether it's a museum or a company, a billionaire company coming to you for a project, yeah, they're gonna want their own narrative into it. Like if there's no injustice or racism involved in it, they don't want to touch it because they have it's foreign to them. If there's no racism in it, they're not gonna understand it, right? If you have, like, it just goes back to my point of Black joy. If you show Black joy and people being happy, whether it's memes, a dance, a song, the way you look, your hair, however you want to portray yourself, they're going to be like, well, where's the racism? I don't get it.
Wow.
That's where you have Black spaces around where we're like, all right, we get what you're talking about. You don't have to question, you know, whether you want to make money off of you. Like, you know, you already know they're going to make money off of you, and they're going to pay you the lowest dollar amount, whether you like it or not.
Right.
If they pay you.
If they offer you a dime.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with Brittany because I feel like it's just as Black people trying to exist in systems that have already been established that we are just on the low. We have to make our own spaces to do things, you know. I definitely agree. I think for us to be able to thrive off of our own art and not have to do it just based off of suffering, we have to be able to create space for us to explore those different art realms and, you know, have conversations like this that we're like conversations like this and just talk, you know. I don't think people get a lot of chance, I don't think people get a lot of opportunity to speak about their own experiences, especially this. Like, this is amazing that we were able to come together and be on like one theme, but already branched out and did different ideas, you know, like Lavon, like you really drew, like you really painted with both your hands. Like that right there is amazing. Like for me, I'm right-handed, and to tell my left hand, my right hand already does, it's a whole different level. Like I want to talk to Lavon about that, like about your pieces, especially like with your ideas with come to do two different paintings with different colors, one completely Black and white, but one with like the basic colors and going with that. Like I would love to hear you talk more about that.
Yeah, okay. So it really was, like I said, it was a mental health refresher for me because I needed to have a safe place where I could just create and express myself wholly, completely, because I am complete in the color that my skin is, and being a woman, I am complete, I am full, and I am loved, and I love myself. I know my identity, and I know who I am. And so what my purpose in doing this was to show also the need for mental health, like releases. Like art therapy is a real thing, and I think that it's really important that we start actually talking about that, and how when you express yourself, you are free. And so this is what it was. This is what came. It was, of course, I mean, I do organic pieces, so I never know what it's going to be until it's done. But I did do the color concepts on purpose. The black and white, again, it was like, because race is literally, it's a concept of the mind. It's not an actual thing. And so we are all human. And so I know that, like, it's, yes, my melanin is magic, but I'm a human, like, and so I just want to be known as an artist, and I just so happen to be Black. Like, I want to be in those spaces where the color of my skin does not dictate my experience. Like, I am because I am, and that's it. And so doing the primary colors was ode to just creation. Like, those are the original colors, like you create based off of those. And then I go to the Eve gene, and that's the woman gene, where you can create all color spectrum from just being, like, and so all of this like ties it together. It's mirror images, because I wanted to literally like go, like, I want you to use your full brain. I want you to use your full understanding of just being, using the 9 dots. If you can kind of see them, that's like the expression. It's a psychological test that people do for expansion of creativity. Like, when you do this test, a lot of people, you are supposed to just use one, you put your pencil on a paper, and you're supposed to connect all of the dots together without lifting the pen or your thing from off of the paper. So people, they always, well, not always, but normally they stay within the boundaries, but there is no boundary. You go beyond for it to actually work. And so that's where I was thinking with that, like, we have to come up higher. Our mental capacity has to come up higher. We have to just think beyond. Like, I'm tired of this narrative of the woe is me Black person. Like, no boundaries, right? Thank you. There are boundaries. Like, I just want us to come up higher. I want us to understand that we are bigger than what we could ever think or imagine, but we have to walk in that. We have to be bold. We have to be courageous. And so that's what this freedom of expression was for me. Like, and I also don't like to tell people what they see, but like just looking at it like mirror, because I'm looking forward, but it's behind me. So even seeing that, I'm seeing images, like I'm seeing stuff, and it's kind of just like coming out to me. Like, I see faces now, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, I just want people to see themselves in what I create. And that could be Black, white, purple, blue. I'm over you telling me that this is what I'm limited to because of the color of my skin. So like I said, I am the antonym. Like, I'm a creative creation. I am a creative creation who is created to create by the creator, period.
And that's on period. That's definitely on period. And I definitely agree with you on that, because I feel like for me, with this project, especially going, like you're talking about, like not being boxed in, which is exactly what I said. Like, I didn't want, like, as much as everybody has seen me for like for photography, which is good, because photography I've grown into my photography skills. I've been doing this for a long time, but for me, I have never just stood with photography. I hate it. Honestly, I think I used to feel so weird when people say, "Oh, you're a photographer. You're a photographer." I'm like, yeah, but I'm more than just a photographer. You know, I'm an artist. Like, people are like, art was my first language. Literally, I learned sign language when I was like growing up. So when you're talking about art, like, you can't just be stuck in one thing. You have definitely with you, like, your theme outside of the box, and Andy Warhol, like, you know, putting everything in like in a box and thinking outside of, like, you can't stick yourself in just one medium or one discipline. Like, as Black people, that's the same thing with us. Like, we're not just one type of Black people. We are an array and a range of Black people, you know. So with our art and what we create, not only just, it doesn't even have to always be pain. It's joy too. Like, my piece, like, as much as we were talking about the Birmingham race riots and looking at the images and how contrasty it was, you can't see like the faces of the Black people, but you can see the faces of the white people and the dogs and stuff. Like, I wanted to do, for me, I wanted to do something that was more uplifting. I don't like sitting on negative stuff. I don't think we should stick on negative stuff. I think we should be on higher stuff. We should keep moving forward and keep doing positivity. As Black people, when people throw stuff at us all the time, what do? We flip it and turn it into our own thing. We don't let that become a thing. We won't allow it. But yeah.
Y'all better preach.
Look.
Go ahead, sir.
Go ahead, Narada. You good?
That's exactly what I was just trying to do in my piece. That's why I'm sure I'm known on Instagram for BLM photography. I didn't want to include any of that because I'm beyond that. I don't want to just be seen for that. I don't want to be seen as a pain artist where I would have to be around something painful. I am beyond that. And that's the whole response to the Race Riot piece. Why I didn't include it, why I used two of Andy's pieces as inspiration, completely my original pieces, combine them together to create the sunset. What do most people have in common? We like fruit. Everybody sees the moon. Every single day it's there, every day. So I just made that intersection of that and different colors just to show that we also have the ability to do the same things Andy did. Who knows, in 20 years, I could be as famous as Andy as any of us could be. But that's why you work every day when no one's looking.
Right.
Right.
And I think it's the heart. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it's the heart of the thing. Like when you have a heart that is pure and a heart that wants to bring peace to the world, it's going to be conveyed in your artwork. It's going to, even in places of pain, like there is still, it's the heart of the thing. And I'm excited. You guys are just making my heart so happy. Like, you don't even understand. This is what we needed. This is necessary. And again, thanks to the MAG, thanks to Rachel, yes. Because this was a platform that I think was necessary. And I hope that it just continues to elevate each and every one of us, but also elevate the art community, elevate the narrative of Black artists, elevate just art, because we are all necessary. Like, and it is so important.
And what I see, to piggyback off of that, I mean, just looking at us, right? If someone was to say Black artists in Rochester, maybe they'd only think of one thing, right? But I mean, just going back to what Rachel said, we're not a monolith whatsoever. And I think another deeper level to it, well, this is my own interpretation, because admittedly, I said openly, I choose violence. I am a...
Look, there's no one choosing violence. Sometimes
it's all good. You show the realness of it.
I'm a cynical bastard at heart, existentialist. But I will say, I think that just like what you're saying, I mean, people will open up a magazine, they'll open up the news app, and then they feel like they can compress the Black experience, 140 characters, and it's simply not possible. Similar to the way that you can't compress Coco's art to just photography. It's not simple like that. And I think that for me anyway, I'm drawn to dissonance because I think that's where life is most interesting. That's where you find, when you're met with that sort of friction, that's where you find like the truest, whatever, I'm not going to go off on that. But I think also it's important to recontextualize what it means. Like, okay, I'm Black and I'm angry. Well, what the hell does that actually mean? Because there's so many layers to it that people aren't understanding, right? It's not just anger for anger's sake. It's the same thing when you see people rioting. It's not just because they're rioting. There's deeper levels, on a mental health level, on a spiritual level, on a community-based level. And I think that, again, what we do, I mean, it really, not that it has to have a purpose, because ultimately, like I said, it'd be great to just make art just to create it, which all of you are doing. And yeah, it's just really inspiring, because I think that if we can help say, like, here's the 5th deepest level to what it means to be angry and how that is intrinsically tied to me being joyful, and that both exist. And I'm constantly trying to find that balance as a Black person, and how that is just a really powerful thing. I think that, right, exactly.
You got to find that medium.
That's what I'm saying. And again, I think that, like, exploring that dissonance is such a powerful thing. But we're not able to do that necessarily. We'll strive for it as individual Black artists. We can only do that by all being so incredibly different and driven. And only when we have this diaspora, and highlighted and exhibited, will the greater world understand the levels to this shit, right? And I think that's a really powerful thing.
I was
Can I
gonna
text
say,
you in the room real quick? Just real quick.
Take your time.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I don't know how true this is, right? So I was on Wikipedia and I typed in Andy Warhol's like the Birmingham Race Riot painting. And then I find out that another curator gifted that piece to his partner. Now, I find humor in anything, whether it's traumatic or, you know, funny. How would you feel if someone gifted you a painting of someone being brutalized by a police officer from your partner? What do you even do in that situation? Because obviously I feel like the message of the painting went off was very deaf tone to where it was. Clearly someone was just like, this is beautiful. This is an Andy Warhol painting. I'm going to gift it to somebody. It wasn't even about the subject. It was about, this is an Andy Warhol painting. I'm gonna give it to my partner. Now, how would you feel? Like, I want it from each and every one of you.
I think Erica should go first because Erica hasn't talked.
Yeah, Erica,
Erica
go
go
ahead.
first. Yeah,
Wait.
I'm sorry, I had to
That question is deep. Hold
Put
on.
her out.
All right. Okay, so I'm gonna make it short. That painting was allegedly gifted to a partner of another curator. So a big time curator gave it to his partner as a gift, the Birmingham Race Riot painting or piece as a gift. Now, if someone, whether it's a friend or, you know, a loved one, how would you react if they gave you that painting as a gift?
Is Erica first?
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't
You don't have to go.
Listen,
You don't have to
I don't want to go first because listen, I'm on my laptop and I have a desktop. My laptop's about to die and it's like 5%. So somebody else go first so I can switch computers.
Let's let Narada
That's
go
fine.
since Narada's itching to go. Go ahead.
I'm not
Narada.
itching to go.
Well, let me go then. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I
One of the
do.
ladies go first.
Because I am not a brand person. I don't like, names don't mean much to me. It's the content of the person's character and all of that. So what I would have done if I would have gotten this Andy Warhol piece as a gift, I would have put a big red X on it and given it back.
Okay.
I'm not here for it. We're not going to keep perpetrating this narrative. No, it's a no for me. It's a what? It's a no. So big red X. No, thank you. Thank you, but no, thank you.
I think for me, the big thing is, and I'm sure all of you have had this experience, you know, it's every other day or every single day that there's a new video out, there's a new this, there's a new that. And I mean, it's been clarifying the past 4 years, but particularly since May, you know, who truly is an ally, who isn't. There's people who surprise me and there's people who have surprised me, right? Like they're out, right? Yep. But my thing is, like, I love that people are getting involved. They're paying attention. They're not staying silent anymore. That's brilliant. The one thing that right now we need to understand, the last people that need to see more videos of Black brutalization are the Black people, right?
Right.
We should be able to choose when to revisit these things because we were born into this, right? Like growing up, eating cereal, watching Rodney King get his ass beat, right? So for me, if someone was to gift me an image, here's a great example. I met up with Narada a few months ago. We went through all of his brilliant pictures. I chose out of all those pictures, not a picture of brutalization. I picked one that was uplifting because we have to think about our mental health here. We have to think about what inspires us. Yes, it's empowering to see something, but I picked, you know, one of the brilliant photos of Asa out there at Martin Luther King Park, you know, speaking to the crowd, because that's something that'll inspire me. So again, I can't speak if I was like a white partner, yada, yada, but I know from my own perspective that the last thing I'm trying to see, because every day when I wake up and every night when I go to bed, these are the images that I'm seeing. And then when I go to edit, these are the images that I'm seeing. When I'm trying to get the money, these are the images that I'm submitting. So you better believe that the last damn thing I want to see is more of this. I get to choose that time and space with a little bit of and I'm ready to go. But I gotta get there, you know, because otherwise I'm just gonna fall apart. I already am kind of. I mean, we all are, aren't we? So
go ahead, Coco.
Thank you. I think it's just for me, and I think that's one of the things why I made the art that I did was like, for example, at the bottom of the piece, I have a picture. Well, as you can see, Donald Glover is my favorite person. Like, I love Donald Glover. So this piece, he's in the piece. And anybody who's seen the show Atlanta already knows how crazy that show is, but the show literally tells you to pay attention to like everything around you.
Everything.
And I feel like with that, if somebody gave me something like that, and you know I'm Black, and you know you give me some crazy, like, okay, yeah, it's Andy Warhol, but why would you give me a piece pertains more to Black trauma? Like the rootedness that's in it. Like, you would give me a piece. Like, if you look at the piece itself, they are using dogs as a weapon. Dogs, you know, like people, and that's the thing that people don't understand. Like, think of this way, some Black people just don't like dogs for various reasons, and that especially is one of the reasons. Nothing breaks my heart more than, you know, hearing stories of my grandmother and her siblings in Charles, North Carolina, back in the 50s and 60s, having water hoses and telling them they can't sit anywhere, having dogs sicked on them, and them going like.
They still using those dogs today.
They still use the dogs today, and you want to see like funny. It's a whole trauma. It's not even just. It's like it's the same thing when you think of like Black trauma with, you know, Black people not knowing how to swim. I can't swim. I'm going to be honest. I cannot swim. A lot of it is very psychological. I can't even explain it. I would love to go swimming, and I will eventually when I get over my fear. But it's just that, especially with that, you know, and. With that, it's just I wouldn't want somebody to give me something. If you're gonna give me Andy Warhol piece, give me any other piece. You can give me you can even like send me one of his 15-minute segments. I liked his segments and how he was talking about music and pop culture, but don't send me no shit like that. Like, please don't. Like, I don't need what am I supposed to put on a piece as a constant reminder of where I'm at and how that there is in the picture you don't see anyone who looks like me as a Black woman in there. Like, what is that gonna tell me more about myself that I already know that the world's already told me? Yeah. You know? So that's how I feel. You could give me any other gift from Andy Warhol, just not that.
I don't want Big Mama or whatever that one was either, though.
That one. Yeah, no, because that was really. Cause I was looking at that piece for a long. Cause I'm just like, yo, like all the other stuff I like, but that one was really, really, really had my skin crawling. And that one especially.
Yeah. Narada. Who wants to go next?
You.
Erica. Did you switch over, Erica?
I think Erica did. Yeah, she did. She's in a different room.
Yeah, go ahead. It's two of her up there now.
Good honest now. Okay.
Yeah, the other one's gonna die soon. But yes, I don't understand. So if someone gifted me
the race riot,
the Birmingham race riot, someone gave that to you. It could be anybody, and they were just like, you know what? I thought about you. How would you even react to it?
I'd be like, what the hell is this? Why would you?
Man, really?
I feel it. Like I feel like with that, you have to really think about giving gifts. Like when you give gifts, you have to really think about the person, you know, like to me.
Okay, what if I say something? And it's gonna flip y'all on your head though. So
I'm not ready.
So say what if it was because this is my territory. I like to engage thinking. What if it was a Black person that gave it to you because you were part of this project, right? And they gave it to us because they're like, you were tied to this and it catapulted you. That's one thing. The second thing is, what if they gave you that and you realize that painting costs $40,000? I would take it and I'm gonna put it in the stash. I'm gonna hold it like Jay-Z said. And I'm gonna sell it in a couple years because they just gave me it. Or
sell it for NFTs, yeah.
Or what if someone sees Erica's screen printed photo and they're an officer or something like that, and they could say, you know, someone could want to purchase that, right? And they could want to display in their house. It's like, I've had people ask me for the weirdest images ever and say, hey, can you send me that? I love that. White and Black. I've had a Black woman ask me for pictures of the cops before because she wanted to burn them. I'm like, I'm not giving you those for that. That's just my work. It's just different. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's a lot of different angles that this question can actually be answered.
Yeah, it's still a no for me.
I get that. But me, I take pictures and I have pictures of pain. I have pictures of dogs at the war memorial, our war memorial, that people failed to know that they were out there, federal troops with dogs. I have pictures. Now, what if someone wanted to purchase those? I mean, be a weird image to choose.
But it's not a gift that someone thought you would enjoy. Like when you think of a gift, you think of something that's going to bring joy to someone.
Yeah.
So for someone to think that that would bring joy to me, first we're going to have a conversation about it also. Like, so what was your thought process in wanting to give this to me? And then so you saying, well, you were a part of this amazing experience, but that is not.
You don't have to display it though.
Yeah, I think.
All right. So, okay, you guys can give it to me and I'm going to go put it somewhere and then
I don't have enough money
to increase value. Then but it's still a no because I feel like I would be validating this
Right.
is okay and it's not okay.
But it happened.
Man's best friend who gets treated better than no.
But is that no different or no better than when we share things on social media? Because
that's what I'm saying.
I had a thing. The recent thing that just happened with the man at Open Door Mission.
Yeah.
I believe it was some news source. I won't call them out right now, but some news source posted it on their Instagram, and there were like over 200 likes. And I'm just thinking like,
oh, I see.
You see?
Just the way the media has us work, like how are we liking things like this? Like, why would you like it? I know there's not a dislike function, but you know, I just had a problem with that.
Sorry, I'll let you go, Martin.
Sorry. That's a good question though.
No, you go.
Well, because I was thinking the same. See, that's interesting. I was thinking the same thing because I'm on Twitter, and like with Twitter, a lot of the stuff people talk about is literally all the stuff that we see. Like we see all the stuff, and for me, that was how I felt when I used to like stuff when people are talking about very triggering things. And I would let people know I'm not liking it because I'm not liking it because of like, I'm liking it because I'm confirming that I'm understanding what they're saying. I get it. I see it. I witness it, you know, especially like for me, I've been kind of out of loop. I just recently heard about what happened with the Open Door Mission. Like I just heard about that. Like I have been kind of out of it for the past few days. But for me, when I think about even yesterday was my birthday. Like if somebody gifted me that piece, like, I mean, I get that you're trying to be nice, but like you have to really, like Lavon, you have to really get to know a person to give a gift when it comes to giving somebody something. Like if you know me as a person, you know the things I like my favorite color is purple, you know, I like bunnies and stuff. Like you want to get something that's pertaining to me. I wouldn't want somebody to give me a piece like, oh, you know, you were doing this stuff with the Birmingham race riots, you know, cool.
Yeah.
I was like, you could give me the book on the death and dying series in general, and I can enjoy all of, like I can look and research all of it more, not just that piece specifically. Because I feel like if you're giving me that piece specifically, you are saying something about me as a Black woman that I already know. You're saying something that's pertaining to my race. You're saying something pertaining to my existence in this world. You're saying something pertaining to the institution, how they treat me and how they look and view at me, you know? So with that, it's just, you have to give a better gift. You have to really think about the person. You know, if gift, I understand when it comes to that, like white people that gift, it's because they don't see themselves in the predicament where they're having dogs stick down them. They don't see themselves being on the bottom. Like they don't know what the bottom looks like. They've been on the top the whole entire time. What's the bottom? I never heard of it. Like that's literally the way people think. And for me, when I was talking about that in my piece, like how Warhol and Moore were using their white privileges, them to be able to sit and watch this stuff happening to them in the minutes that these are happening, for Moore to sit there and go and use police scanners to go find when the next demonstration was happening, to go get pictures of it for assignment is one thing, versus, you know, Warhol seeing that piece in the Times magazine, like, oh, it's a piece about, you know, what's currently happening in the world. But, you know, I don't know anything about it because I'm not a person who's under oppression. I'm not a person who's been denied access to being in this couple spaces. I'm not a person because I look differently, visibly differently than anybody else. So trying to explain the existence of Black people to a person who doesn't have to worry about what it's like to be on the bottom, it's just makes no sense, you know? So it's just.
We have a question. In
I would say, like, to wrap up, like, because I know we got a lot of emotion out of that, and I'm glad we did. But, you know, just to wrap up, you know, my question, you know, I personally, I take it, had my grandmama pray over it, so we ain't got no spirits or none of that in there, and exchange it for Kehinde Wiley piece. So
yes, I love that.
I love that.
Oh my God, I love this piece.
Talking.
I was waiting. I was just waiting. I was like, somebody got to exchange this. And then when I saw Rachel's comment, I was like, let me bring that up. So I would exchange it.
I took the money.
Kehinde Wiley piece.
Look,
Y'all take
I
this.
wouldn't even get that piece
money.
up.
I'll put it in my house. Thank you so much.
I'm like,
still love
it's staying in the house. It's a family heirloom. Like, we're gonna hold this thing until it's like, I don't care if until my kids is general. That's wealth right there. You keep that in that house. You keep it not only for wealth because of money, but wealth because of art. Like, having a piece like that would impact me so much more, because I fell in love with Wiley's pieces. I love his like.
But the Warhols could too. What if your kids came along?
But, okay,
it's not that he's not good. It's about the piece and what it represents. So I like it.
No,
I like
don't get me wrong. Like, if I had Warhol's pieces, I would still freak out too. But for having somebody who looks like me, somebody who actually creates art like me,
I get that. I agree with that.
I don't know, like, and it's, I guess, because for me as a Black woman, and I'm going to say it because it is, as a Black woman, people look at us like, you being Black men, you guys are above us before anything. You guys will be looked at as men before you were Black, if anything. That's, as women, Black women, they look at us as both. That will never change, you know? So having a piece by Wiley and I would love to have a Warhol piece. That would just be just to have a Monet or even a Picasso. Like, those are big names. But think about now. Think about when we're grandparents and have grandbabies running around and ask about different art pieces and stuff. You need to have some representation in your house. You need to have that pieces in there. Like, I think it's important to have both pieces, because I think everybody needs to be subjected to all art. You need to know all artists and art pieces, because you can't just be one-sided on that. But I also think that you have to give people the chance to, you know, be conflicted on which they want to pursue more on, you know, too. I don't know. I
think we should tie it back to what Brittany said about having a space where Black art is on display. Just like the Studio Museum. If you guys haven't seen the Black art documentary on HBO, I suggest everyone watch it. That documentary, even as you say, Black women, they did have a harder time. Molly Ringwald, she wouldn't get any Studio Museum, which hosted Black African Americans, wouldn't put her stuff on display. You know what I mean?
She had to go on.
Exactly. So
she had to go under another name. You can't. And that's the thing is, Black women is just, for us.
Faith Ringwald.
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about, though. It's just, with us, it's just, we still have so much more to go. Like, people are just now sitting here looking at this Black artist. Like, why is it that I'm 28 years old and people are just now giving us respect? Why can't people give us respect back then? Because people already have their predispositions about Black women, Black queer women, Black femme, anything. Like, we still fighting on this just as much as we're still fighting for Black Lives to Matter. Like, that's what we have to always say. All Black lives matter. You can't just have all just Black, because there's more to us. There's more intersectionality when it comes to us. So it's like, with us, we have to fight 10 times harder. Like, y'all have to fight just as hard, but we have to fight 10 times harder. We are the backbones on a lot of stuff.
I ain't getting loved on as a Black man like that for being Black.
Everything's better with a little love on it. Come on.
Like, I get
y'all don't
laying out a red carpet for me either now. Come on now.
I firmly believe, and I completely agree, that Black women and Black trans women in this country are the most at risk.
Absolutely.
And I think that in a similar way that we saw droves of white women voting for Trump, we see that they take refuge within the proximity of the power of the white man. And you see too often Black people it's one of those things that's it's polar opposites. You're either taking refuge within a power structure through proximity, or you're fighting against it. If I was to say, well, I don't want to be a part of that, right? Then it's like, oh, then you're not for it, right? Like the classic kneeling versus whatever. It originally, it originally was a sentiment meant to appease both sides, right? We have issues. Black people are dying or being killed without retribution, with impunity, but also respect the troops and all that, right? But it was automatically boom. Like he talked to a Marine, but no, you're automatically death to America all of a sudden. You're Marxist. You're this. You're that, right? So it's one of those things that I completely agree. Where there are levels to this. There's colorism for sure. Perhaps I would certainly be looked at a lot differently than someone like Narada. And you know, I think that is something crucial for us to acknowledge if we're to move forward, because just like what we said, we're not a monolith, right? And our experiences, in the same way that perhaps we would accept a gift like that versus someone else, you know, I think that speaks to what we see within these images. Like when a question was raised by Carmen, how do we feel about this response? Was it hurtful? Was it offensive? I think so often when we see pieces, we inherently, just through hubris, we try to look for ourselves in them. Right? And I think that if something is so is so true to character, when we see something like that, we insert ourselves as if we were those people being attacked by dogs. And I think that that's important to acknowledge. Now, to be the devil's advocate, perhaps someone could see that and feel empowered, like they fought for it. I'm fighting now, right? Sure, that exists. But I think working on a piece like this, I mean, why else were we asked to work on this piece versus his pictures of the sunrise, right? We inherently are viewed as experts in our own trauma because it's understood. It's acknowledged, but you know, it's like we're constantly fighting that balance. Anyways, yeah,
I'm gonna ask a quick question.
Real quick, I was really intrigued by what Erica brought up with the whole social media part, because I think it's really interesting. Every time I see, like, Rochester's been in the news constantly, we are just like
every week.
Like, we've been trending on Twitter too. Like Twitter is all over on Twitter.
How do y'all feel? Because I'm both, you know, embarrassed, but at the same time, I'm like, the world needs to see this.
Exactly.
Because Adam Bello isn't saying anything. Our mayor isn't. So it's like, maybe what it takes is obviously our community. We like
our
now,
art.
As we speak, people are in the having protests, but it's like, we need to I hate to see it trending, but at the same time, it's like, damn, that's what's necessary. I don't know. Like, how do you?
So I like what you said. Yeah. Go ahead, Coco.
No, sorry, mine's gonna be really quick. No, because I was feeling the same thing too with like everything when everything happened with Daniel, and how I was on, like I said, I've been actively on Twitter more than I've been on Facebook, and just seeing Rochester, New York come on like trending #1, it's like, damn, like we really on the spot right now. And for us being such a small city, we have such a rich history when it comes to like Frederick Douglass and how everything is just open out, coming out into the open. Like Rochester is no longer allowed to just be, you know, hidden behind the background. You know, we're known for Kodak and, you know, Susan B. Anthony and also no. We need to sit here and talk about these real issues we're having in this city. And all of us being born and raised in Rochester, we've had our own perspectives on what we've been exposed to with everything that's been happening, you know. So I feel you on both, like feeling like embarrassed, but then it's like, it's been good to have people have this light come on, because we need to talk about stuff like this.
Nobody's talking about it. Yeah.
No one is. Like, why is it that it's just, you know, you're right. Our elected officials aren't doing shit, and they aren't. So this is where we the people, and I'm gonna say this because it's in the fucking preamble, we the people, we need to sit here and do something about it, you know? As artists, writers, dreamers, we're the ones who see and know what's going, like, we see the future. We know what the future is going to look like. We want the future to be inclusive. We want all these different changes, and it's going to be a minute before these changes like officially change. But we have to get this thing going when it comes to stuff like that, you know? Right. As artists, it's a hard job because we see things that normal people don't see. You know, we put this in front of them with our images. People think, oh yeah, like we love your like for Narada with the moon fruit series. Like people are gonna think, oh, it's so beautiful, and you know, there's colors and the transition of like the fruit into the moon but there's deeper meaning behind it. Like you took the time to research his like process and kind of mimic the same way, but do it with your own stuff. Versus him, where he was like, I'm just gonna you know, I'm gonna appropriate somebody else. If you were like, I'm going to make my own thing, I want all my stuff to be original, you know, and that's what sets you apart differently for that.
Yeah.
So,
I appreciate that.
yeah.
Quick thing. So it ties back to the Warhol piece itself. We're having this discussion because that picture, that thing was created. And it also, we just educated 200 plus people about this whole thing. So that pushes the discussion forward still. And that piece had to be created, and that pain from that day actually happened.
That dissonance.
And this is why we're still here. And we're here to make that, social media is here, and all of our work is displayed. And to some people, it may be pain. The protester in front of Martin's piece could have got shot with a rubber bullet. I probably think he probably did. I was there that night. He probably did. Would he see that as pain? Possibly, but he could also see it as, I took that shot for us to keep going forward. You know what I mean? John Lewis, you know what I mean? He was beaten by police. We have a huge picture of him. Does it remind you of pain, or does it remind you of the man that went through the pain to create a better future for us? And it's all very interesting.
I have to say, I'm tired of seeing Black pain. I'm trying to see Black uplifting.
Right.
And, you know, like it's time to kind of highlight the better stuff that we're doing, like what we're doing right now. But
exactly.
I'm tired of seeing the bad stuff.
Yeah,
I agree.
No pain.
Like,
with
it's just a lot. Like when you just see it's in the media, you go to the news, social media, it's on
publications,
whatever, any publication, but you never see what people are doing to resolve it. You always see the pain. But you got so many people who are out here trying their best to fix it. We all know the education system is not doing nothing.
No.
It's shit. I say
I'm a part of the education system.
After school program.
I am a part of the education system, and I am on purpose changing that in my classroom with the students that I can touch, the ones that I can with.
Exactly.
So to be purposeful in it, like I am. So I mean, yes, as a whole, it's whack. But there are people that are trying, putting the work.
And that's exactly and you're not being. That's exactly what is that we need to show. Like we not only do we need to show the problem, we need to highlight the people who are trying to show, like to try to change.
Highlight it.
I like that because if you're constantly showing, especially young kids who don't have a direction of where to go, they're going to constantly think that, well, this same old shit, ain't nobody trying to help us. But if you show people trying to help, then they're going to think, oh, there's somebody trying to help. I'm going to try to do the same thing.
That's what we're there for. That's why I see y'all beautiful pieces up around the city.
You can't work towards a solution until you finally acknowledge the problem. And I think that that's the issue. Like, it's terrible to see this pain, but so many people are still not acknowledging the problem on a societal level. Tell me what solutions
it's not us. It's not
your
us.
Pieces.
It's not us, but I'm saying, like, it's perhaps, just like I said, I don't want people sending me the trauma, sure. But at the end of the day, if I could, I would open up every suburban white person's eyeballs and make them and force them to look at these images, because we won't get to a solution unless we acknowledge the problem. But diversity of thought is important.
But the pain is almost entertainment sometimes in white America. So I love that the fact that you ladies all displayed, Erica, you did yours the same way as me with the photo, but the painting, these things could be displayed anywhere around the city. You guys didn't put pain in it at all. It was a beautiful aspect of it. And it inspires the youth because they can walk past it and see these things and want to keep going. I want, that's the same thing we want to go. It doesn't just have to be labeled. We don't have to just show Black pain. That's the whole part of that, was a response to that. And as no one truly showed pain, Martin showed realness, and pain is a part of realness sometimes.
It is. It definitely is. I just feel like when it comes, I feel like for me, being somebody who is not only a product of going to the city school district, but then also somebody who actually graduated from a small school in the burbs, is people gonna do what they're gonna do. And if people gonna, no, seriously, but you already know, like, people gonna do what they're gonna do. You can sit there and try to explain your whole existence, your everything. If people don't look like you, don't like go through the stuff that you exist and everything, how are they gonna understand? How am I gonna explain my trauma of a Black woman to a white woman? And she ain't never gonna have to sit here and worry about beauty standards, because she is the beauty standard. Like why I gotta sit here and try to combat, like, people, every time people look at me, the first thing I gotta say is like, oh, people are gonna have their own impressions and their, their little thinks, but it's just like, you have to go past it as Black people. Like, who cares? Like, we have
We're gonna have to leave that as the last word. One of the tenets of long table conversations is there's an end but no conclusion. So this is the end of the long table, not necessarily the end of your voices. And I know that we want to have a space for people to be able to see this work and your work post this conversation. But right now, I'm going to invite Jonathan Binstock back in. It's almost 4 o'clock to actually close the event. And I just have to say before I do leave and stop my video that you all are amazing. I could not be more proud to have worked with you. I could not be more proud. You have exceeded all of my expectations for this project, and you're just tremendous people besides that. So thank you.
We thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity. Seriously. I think we all definitely needed this.
Yeah.
Thank you. Someone asked in the chat if our works will be on display.
I think that's a good question. And Rachel and I have to talk about that. I think that's certainly a possibility that we need to work on and figure out. I'd love to see the works on display myself. I don't know why Rachel asked me to say the last word, because I don't want to say the last word. This is not my job, I think, right now. But if you know me at all, I will say a word. First of all, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank every one of you, Erica, Narada, Brittany, Martin, Lavon, Coco, Rachel. This has been an incredible program, and I've never, I haven't seen anything like this myself, hosted by an art museum. And it's not about Warhol. It's not about Warhol at all. It's about, in part, it's about what you can do with Warhol. It was, I think, Lavon who said she's going to put a big red X through it.
I'm going to increase the value of it because Lavon artwork is now a part of it. Okay.
Hey, I mean, it's not no love on it.
Everything's better with a little love on it.
Hey.
Narada is going to work every day when nobody's looking.
You know it.
And that to me also was a revelation. I took some notes here. Martin, we are viewed as experts in our own trauma. Coco, we see things that people don't see. Brittany, the question you asked really got me going. What are you going to do if you got this picture as a gift? That was a brilliant question.
That was fun.
And Erica, you got to market those T-shirts. I want to buy one, and I want to buy one I want to give that as a gift to a lot of people. Thank you all very much. I'm glad we recorded this. I'm glad it's going to be available for all to see, and that we'll archive it. You guys generated new knowledge here. You advanced knowledge. You advanced the conversation. You took Warhol and you went right on by and used him in a way that was productive, whether it came from anger, Martin, or it came from love, Lavon, or it came from experience, personal opinions. You brought me to a new level. So that doesn't happen every day. I want to thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing you all in person in real life very soon. I want to thank everybody who tuned in. Rachel de Guzman, you're brilliant too. What a brilliant moderator. What a brilliant program this has been. So beautifully orchestrated. progressive dialogue. Look where we came. Look where you guys brought us. Wow. All right, I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna say goodbye. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you. And
All
thank
right.
you.
Great job.
Thank you, Rachel.
Great job.
Love this, love. Yay.
Thank you.